Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Channa.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On World DNA today, after 2 days of device explosions in Lebanon, the Israeli military continued to strike Hezbollah sites. Well, the IDF said that it hit 100 Hezbollah rocket launches with an aim to ensure the safe return of Israel's northern communities to their homes. Meanwhile, Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah has warned of retribution and said that Israel has crossed all red lines. The question now being, has the center of gravity moved northwards away from Gaza? We will be tracking that on the show today.
Also on World DNA, we get you the latest from India. After 41 days of protest, the junior doctors in Kolkata have partially lifted their ongoing cease work agitation, and this is after seeking assurances from the West Bengal government that the doctors would now be resuming their emergency services from Saturday. We are going to be tracking that closely for you as well. Let's get you started with the headlines.
Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah dares Israel to invade Lebanon in first speech after series of device explosions that killed 37 people and wounded more than 3,000 over a span of 2 days.
Israel strikes hundreds of targets in Lebanon as fears of a full-scale war soar. IDF claims airstrikes hit hundreds of rocket launchers ready for immediate attack on Israel.
US Congress and Biden administration near agreement to seek one-year extension of $6 billion in military aid for Ukraine ahead of President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the US.
India extends budgetary support to Maldives for another year, decides to roll over $50 million treasury bill on request of Maldivian government.
Junior doctors in India's West Bengal agreed to partially withdraw their strike to resume essential services from Saturday after a 41-day impasse over rape and murder of a trainee doctor.
Bangladesh's Dhaka University decides to suspend all forms of political activities by students and teachers on campus.
Japanese superstar Shohei Ohtani scripts baseball history en route, guiding Los Angeles Dodgers to the playoffs. The 30-year-old becomes the first player to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in a single season. And our top focus and beyond right now, Israeli warplanes struck hundreds of targets in Lebanon on Thursday amid fears of full-scale war following device explosions that killed at least 37 people in Lebanon.
The Israeli army claims it hit hundreds of rocket launcher barrels ready to be fired by Hezbollah fighters towards Israel. Now, several buildings and a weapons depot belonging to Hezbollah were also bombed in several areas of southern Lebanon.
The strikes began in the afternoon and were carried out in several waves. The Israeli army released footage showing what it claimed to be strikes on Hezbollah launchers and terrorist infrastructure sites.
Smoke and fire were seen rising from the site of an Israeli strike on the southern Lebanese border village of Rehan.
Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said IDF's actions against Lebanese militant group Hezbollah will continue and that Hezbollah will pay an increasing price as Israel seeks the return of its residents to homes near the Lebanon border.
היעד שלנו הוא להחזיר את תושבי הצפון אל בתיהם בביטחון. ככל שחולף הזמן, חיזבאללה ישלם מחיר הולך וגובר.
The Israeli Air Force jets flew low over Beirut and carried out sonic booms even during a speech by Hezbollah leader Syed Hassan Nasrallah. The mock air raid was the lowest jets had flown over the city since the beginning of the war in October last year. Hezbollah leader Nasrallah, in his televised address, called the device attacks an act of war and vowed to keep up daily strikes on Israel. He said Israel would face tough retribution and just punishment.
وسيواجه بحساب عسير وقصاص عادل من حيث يحتسبون ومن حيث لا يحتسبون. ولكن لأن هذه المعركة الجديدة كانت في أوجه خفية، دعوني اليوم غير الأسلوب، فلا أتحدث لا عن وقت ولا عن شكل ولا عن مكان ولا عن زمان. اتركوا الموضوع والخبر هو ما ترون لا ما تسمعون.
Well, on the other hand, the White House said that U.S. President Joe Biden believes that there can still be a diplomatic resolution to the escalating tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. The U.S. State Department said Hezbollah must stop its attacks against Israel if it wants to ease tensions in the region.
What we want is calm. We want calm for the tens of thousands of Israeli families who've been forced from their homes, and we want calm for the tens of thousands of Lebanese families that have been forced from their homes. Now, look, Nasrallah could stop the terrorist attacks across Israel. And I guarantee you, if he did that, we would be impressing upon Israel the need to maintain calm on their end.
Meanwhile, in a video message addressed to the Lebanese people, French President Emmanuel Macron said Lebanon cannot live in fear of an imminent war and conflict must be avoided.
D'abord, personne n'a intérêt à l'escalade. Ensuite, l'intégrité, la sécurité, la souveraineté du Liban doivent être préservées. Et rien, aucune aventure régionale, aucun intérêt privé, aucune fidélité à quelque cause que ce soit ne mérite de déclencher un conflit au Liban.
UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy called for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah as week of escalation has brought both the sides to the brink of war.
We are all very, very clear that we want to see a negotiated political settlement so that Israelis can return to their homes in northern Israel and indeed Lebanese can return to their homes. And that's why tonight I'm calling for an immediate ceasefire from both sides so that we can get to that settlement, that political settlement that's required.
And well, for more on this, we're now being joined by Colonel David B. Roches from Washington, D.C. He is the West Asia analyst and an associate professor at the Near East South Asia Center for Security Studies. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us on World DNA, Colonel Roches. Now, after the device explosions in Lebanon over the past 2 days, Israel has now conducted airstrikes on Hezbollah targets, while there are heightened tensions, often escalating war in West Asia. I want to seek your assessment. Are we seeing a widening of the war, or in your opinion, has the center of gravity moved northwards away from Gaza right now?
Yeah, well, I think that the latter point is probably true. I think that Israel is engaged in, they still have some large-scale conventional operations in Rafah along the border with Egypt, and they still have to kill the remnants of Hamas's command and control. But most of the Gaza Strip is now in a sort of policing insurgency mode. It's notable that there haven't been any missiles or rockets fired out of Gaza into Israel while this is going on. So that part of the conflict is winding down a little bit. There's not an escalation because Hezbollah and Israel have been exchanging fires pretty much since about a week after the invasion, or a week after the October 7th massacres. What's interesting here is an increase in intensity. And I think that what you're seeing is Israel is determined to force upon Hezbollah, which has openly said they want to make northern Israel uninhabitable. They're going to impress upon Hezbollah that that is too costly for them to continue.
Colonel, do you feel the U.S. has a new task at hand now to achieve some sort of a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, because the tensions seem to only be escalating and the frequency of the attacks and counterattacks have only been increasing in recent weeks?
Well, Israel's not fighting Lebanon. They're fighting Hezbollah, which is a group within Lebanon that actually subverts the Lebanese state. Many Lebanese would be very happy if Hezbollah would to go away. But that being said, yeah, this is a difficult task. What complicates it is that Hezbollah is armed and supported by Iran. And Iran views Hezbollah as one of their key guarantors against an Israeli strike against their nuclear facilities. So paradoxically, Iran's role may lead to a de-escalation. If it looks as though Israel might destroy Hezbollah, Iran will tell Hezbollah to agree to a ceasefire because they want to preserve some military capability as a check on Israel striking Iran.
Colonel Roches, I also want to add here that the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has postponed his Israel visit at this point of time, and Washington has emphasized on a diplomatic resolution. But do you think that the U.S. will be backing Israel, because it has not changed its military posture in West Asia after the explosions in Lebanon, if Israel continues to escalate the war on the northern front?
Okay, so again, the United States actually backs the Lebanese state, and we provide military equipment to the Lebanese state, and we actually unusually pay some of the salaries of soldiers in the Lebanese army. That's not who Israel's fighting. I think, though, that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization in the United States. They've been involved in hijackings of American aircraft. They were involved in the attack on the Marine Corps barracks when Marines and Army soldiers deployed to Lebanon to evacuate the Palestinian Liberation Organization. There's no affection for Hezbollah. And the conduct of I think the United States will support Israel, at least initially, in a conflict against Lebanese Hezbollah.
All right, Colonel, thank you so much for sharing all your insights. And you've stressed a great deal on differentiating between Hezbollah and Lebanon. And of course, US, yes. Israel is at war with Hezbollah here. And of course, those tensions have only been rising. We are going to be tracking that closely. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.
All right, we move further from a chilling escalation of covert warfare. Lebanon has been rocked by a second wave of deadly explosions, and this time they've targeted handheld radios. 25 people have died, while over more than 600 injured, while the death toll from Tuesday's explosions rose to 12, including 2 children, with nearly 3,000 injured in total.
Lebanese are in shock, and the international community is condemning the attacks.
Lebanon streets, still echoing with the aftermath of Tuesday's pager explosions, plunged into chaos once again, as walkie-talkies became the latest weapons in an invisible war.
This is an act of aggression against non-combatants, community people. Even if some of them are combatants, but this is a non-discriminatory act of attack.
Witnesses described scenes of horror as the blasts threw men off their motorbikes and sent shoppers crashing to the ground. Handheld radios used by Hezbollah detonated across Lebanon. One blast disrupted a funeral for Hezbollah fighters killed in the earlier pager attacks. Smoke billowed in the skyline as a series of explosions rocked the nation. The explosions showed no mercy to civilians, including children.
We saw young victims and we saw very old victims. And all just had the same type of wounds. They had puncture wounds on their faces, they had amputated limbs, they had open abdomens, intestines out, bowels out.
Can we expect any good from Israel? Children are being killed. Their parents had small devices and they are detonated. Of course we're scared. My children, my siblings' children, all of us. Who can feel safe in this situation?
Wary of Israeli intelligence eavesdropping on mobile phones, Hezbollah's shift to seemingly antiquated technology, pagers and walkie-talkies unwittingly opened the door to a Trojan horse of devastating proportions.
The Israeli military declined comment on both incidents. However, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant declared what he called a new phase of the war, as Israel focuses attention less on Hamas in the Gaza Strip and more towards Hezbollah.
The international community has been swift in condemning these attacks of violence. The United Nations has expressed grave concern over the use of civilian communication devices as tools of war, labeling it a violation of international norms. The European Union issued a strong rebuke, while Iran condemned the attack as mass murder. The US has denied any role in the attacks, blamed on Israel.
What I can tell you is we were not involved in yesterday's incidents or today's in any way, and I don't have anything more to share.
This new frontier of warfare, where everyday objects become potential bombs, presents a terrifying paradigm shift. It raises profound questions about the nature of modern conflict, the boundaries of acceptable tactics, and the vulnerabilities inherent in our increasingly connected world. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will meet US President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris at the White House next week.
And during the visit on September 26, Zelensky is expected to share with the US leaders a victory plan to end the war with Russia.
Now, the White House has said that it will have separate talks with President Biden and with Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris. This is likely to be the last such visit before the November elections later this year that could shape Washington's policy on Kiev.
It comes as Kiev frets that a second Donald Trump presidency could loosen US commitment to Ukraine. Biden has said that during Zelensky's visit, he will reaffirm America's commitment to supporting Ukraine.
Trump, on the other hand, has repeatedly praised Russian President Vladimir Putin and has refused to take a side on the war. As Kiev seeks to cover all political bases, the Ukrainian presidency has said that Zelensky plans to meet the former President Trump during his visit as well.
More than 30 months into the war, the leader's statements come as Ukraine controls parts of Russia's Kursk region and Moscow, on the other hand, presses an advance into eastern Ukraine.
Meanwhile, on Thursday, a Russian-guided bomb hit an assisted living facility in Sumy region. A 5-story building was housing about 211 elderly people. And as per regional officials, at least one was killed and 13 others were injured. Zelensky has reacted to the strike, saying that Russia could not have been unaware that this nursing home for the elderly is not a military base.
He added that in a day, Russian forces have used nearly 90 guided aerial bombs targeting Ukrainian cities. The president also mentioned Kiev's ongoing operation in Russia's Kursk region, saying that the Ukrainian forces already managed to divert around 40,000 Russian troops to this area.
І окрема операція в Курській області. На цей напрямок вже вдалося відволікти близько 40 тисяч російських військових. Тривають наші активні дії. Є і поповнення обмінного фонду для нас, для України. І все це важливі речі, які впливають на загальну ситуацію у війні.
Moving on, Sri Lanka is bracing for an election like never before. Record number of contestants on the ballot make this a more competitive battle than ever.
Well, our colleague Dharamjot Kaur gets you a report on who are Sri Lanka's top presidential candidates. Take notes.
As Sri Lanka heads to elections, voters have a comprehensive list of 38 presidential candidates to choose from. The island nation is witnessing a multi-party contest, but only a few have a fighting chance in an election that has no clear frontrunner. The incumbent Ranil Wickremesinghe is seeking a re-election after he took over a broken nation 2 years ago. Wickremesinghe served as Sri Lanka's Prime Minister a record 6 times in the past. But ahead of the polls, the leader of the United National Party failed to rally support from the SLPP. Instead, he found backing from more than 90 independent parliamentarians. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa is another key candidate in the presidential elections. Son of assassinated former President and Prime Minister Rana Singhe Premadasa, Sajith is seen as a front-runner for the September 21 polls. Premadasa leads the SJB party that broke its alliance with Wickremesinghe's UNP in 2019. The third key candidate in the race is Anura Kumara Desanaike. Leader of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, the 55-year-old is contesting as a National People's Power Coalition candidate. The NPP has only 3 seats in the country's parliament, but it rose to prominence after the 2022 mass protests. The largest party in the Sri Lanka parliament, the SLPP, has fielded a candidate in Namal Rajapaksa, son of former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Nobody, including the party, expects him to win. But experts say Namal Rajapaksa's run in the upcoming election might help establish him as an heir of the Rajapaksa brothers' legacy after the political family's fall from grace following the 2022 economic meltdown. Now, the rules require a candidate to secure a minimum of 50% majority vote. But other presidential candidates representing community-specific interests hold the power to turn this into an unprecedented election by increasing the possibility of a preferential vote count to narrow down on a winner. But if there's one thing that all top candidates have in common, it's the promise of a bailout plan for Sri Lanka's broken economy that hit rock bottom in 2022. The road to recovery, though positive, has been long and slow. The big question here is, who has promised or done enough to inherit Sri Lanka's financial crisis and turn around the island nation's fortunes?
Well, it's time now for a quick short break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, we'll get you a story of how respiratory virus is causing paralysis in children and is making a return across the US. While not yet widespread, the rise in infections has caught the attention of health officials, raising fears of the threat, a rare polio-like illness.
India has decided to extend its budgetary support to the Maldives for another year. It will roll over a $50 million treasury bill for an additional year upon the request of the Maldives government. We are going to be tracking that closely for you as well. Come right back after this short break. This is World DNA.
Senegal to vote in snap parliamentary elections in mid-November after President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dissolved the opposition-dominated chamber, a move he's banking on to implement his policy agenda. 3 Americans are among 37 people sentenced to death in the Democratic Republic of Congo over what the army says was a coup attempt. A military court handed the sentences to 37 out of 51 defendants, including a Belgian, Briton, and Canadian, all naturalized Congolese. And a vibrant artwork and powerful solo drama Iloya unfolded on stage in Nigeria, shedding light on the realities people face while pursuing their dreams and how they make peace with the outcomes. That's this week on World of Africa, at these times on WION. World is One.
Does it not taste good? Let me try it.
No.
As Friends turns 30, we tell you how the show is a pop culture phenomenon. Get a sneak peek into unique celebrity collections. And know the unknown about Jab We Met star Kareena Kapoor Khan. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times only on WION E-Club.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
It's the 200th episode of the West Asia Post. From the start of our series and up until now,
our weekly show where we bring you your weekly dose of stories coming out of West Asia.
We have chronicled the diverse, complex events in West Asia.
50 and more people are still missing.
Detailing, analyzing, and explaining the developments that contribute to making West Asia one of the most volatile regions in the world. In this episode, we decode the biggest security attack on Lebanese soil. Beyond the near-daily missile and rocket assaults, personal communication devices have been lethally hacked. We also get you the latest on Gaza's ceasefire talks. Delve into Iran's diplomatic standing in the world.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, only on WION. World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with me, Raisha and Shivan. There's lots lined up on the show, but first a quick check on the headlines.
Junior doctors in India's West Bengal agree to partially withdraw their strike. to resume essential services from Saturday after a 41-day impasse over rape and murder of a trainee doctor.
India extends budgetary support to Maldives for another year, decides to roll over $50 million treasury bill on request of the Maldivian government.
Bangladesh Dhaka University decides to suspend all forms of political activities by students and teachers on campus.
Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah dares Israel to invade Lebanon in first speech after series of device explosions that killed 37 people and wounded more than 3,000 over a span of 2 days.
Israel strikes hundreds of targets in Lebanon as fears of full-scale war soar. IDF claims airstrikes hit hundreds of rocket launchers ready for immediate attack on Israel.
US Congress and Biden administration near agreement to seek one-year extension of $6 billion in military aid for Ukraine ahead of President Zelensky's visit to the US.
Japanese superstar Shohei Ohtani scripts baseball history en route to guiding Los Angeles Dodgers to the playoffs. The 30-year-old becomes the first player to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in a single season. After 41 days of protests, the junior doctors in Kolkata have announced that they will partially withdraw their strike.
Well, they will resume duties in emergency and essential services at state-run hospitals from Saturday.
The announcement comes after the West Bengal government accepted most of their demands. Today, they plan to lift their sit-in protest outside the State Health Department's headquarters, Swasthya Bhavan. Before concluding their protest, the doctors will hold a march from Swasthya Bhavan to the CBI office in Salt Lake. Junior doctors have been on a cease work protest over the rape and murder of a trainee doctor in RG Kaur Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata.
The demonstrating doctors have asserted that they will wait for a week for the implementation of all the promises made by the West Bengal government, and if unfulfilled, they will resume the strike. The doctors have also clarified that they will not return to the outpatient department, which is the OPD, for now.
These developments come days after doctors met with West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee following 2 failed attempts at talks. Junior doctors have been protesting for more than a month in a movement that has spread across India. The Supreme Court is hearing a suo motu case on the incident, while the Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, is probing a case of financial irregularities at RG Kaur Medical College and Hospital.
In other global news, India has decided to extend its budgetary support to Maldives for another year.
Well, it will roll over a $50 million treasury bill for an additional year upon the request of the Maldives government. The High Commission of India in Maldives said that the State Bank of India has subscribed to the $50 million government treasury bill issued by the Finance Ministry of Maldives. SBI had bought the treasury bill under an agreement signed by the previous government. The bank has bought a total of $200 million in treasury bills.
The treasury bills were previously rolled over annually with interest paid by the Indian government. However, the government of President Mohammad Moizu repaid up to $50 million in January this year, and these numbers are according to reports.
India's relationship with the Maldives came under strain since Mohammad Moizu, known for his pro-China leanings, took charge as president. He had demanded the withdrawal of Indian military personnel manning 3 aviation platforms gifted by India to the Maldives. After talks between the two sides, the Indian military personnel were replaced by civilians.
Well, the Dhaka University in Bangladesh has decided to ban any political activity on the university campus.
All types of political activities by students, teachers and employees will remain banned until further notice. Now, the decision was taken at a meeting of the highest policy-making body of the university syndicate. During quota reform protests that led to the ouster of Sheikh Hasina government, students had demanded a ban on politics connected to the political parties on the campus.
Meanwhile, police have detained 4 students of the university for their alleged involvement in the lynching of a youth on the campus. And according to the reports in Bangladeshi media, a group of students allegedly they wounded a man in phases after confining him in a dormitory on suspicion of being a thief.
At another university in the country's capital, 8 students were suspended in connection with the death of a former student. The victim was a former student of Jahangirnagar University and leader belonging to the student wing of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's party. A respiratory virus that has the potential to cause paralysis in children is making a concerning return across the US.
While not yet widespread, the rise in infections has caught the attention of health officials, raising fears of the threat, a rare polio-like illness.
Now, the resurgence of the enterovirus D68, a virus linked to severe neurological damage in children, is causing concern among health experts. Wastewater samples have detected a noticeable spike in the virus that in rare instances can lead to acute flaccid myelitis or AFM. Now, it is a condition that causes a sudden paralysis in the arms and legs, most commonly in young children.
Now, what makes this viral villain particularly more dangerous is its chameleon-like nature. In most cases, EVD68, it comes with symptoms of common cold, causing the usual coughs and mild headaches. But it can suddenly change into a life-altering threat, leaving parents and medical professionals scrambling to combat its effects.
Since there is no cure or a specific treatment for AFM, the affected children can face long-term disability even after years of rehabilitation. This virus first gained prominence in 2014 when it unexpectedly led to a surge of AFM cases, leaving many children with lasting paralysis.
What's concerning now is the virus's return after a quiet period during the COVID-19 pandemic. The lockdowns reduced the spread of viruses, including EVD68. However, as restrictions eased, infections have started to climb once again. The virus may have evolved, or the population may now have different levels of immunity, making it difficult to predict how severe the situation might become in the future.
Perhaps most frustrating for both families and physicians is the lack of a silver bullet. There's no magic cure or targeted treatment for the paralysis induced by the virus. Experts say that even with years of grueling physical therapy, many children are left to navigate life with permanent disability, their future irrevocably altered by an encounter with this microscopic marauder. Now, pythons, they evoke a primal fear in humans, understandably so, for nothing seldom escapes the deathly grip of these enormous reptiles.
Right, Shivan, but that was not the case with a 64-year-old woman in Thailand. Luckily, the lady got out of the python's grip and survived to tell the tale. Well, little did the woman know that a typical evening work in the kitchen could turn into a fight for her life. She was doing the dishes when she felt a sharp pain in her thigh. A massive python had coiled around her, squeezing her down to the floor. Well, for an hour and a half, the lady kept calling out for help till a neighbor passing by heard her cries. When help finally arrived, the woman was still trapped, pale but holding on to hope. After a tense struggle, the python finally let go, leaving the lady shaken but alive.
The woman spent 2 harrowing hours in the python's grip, as you can see in the visuals. Though treated for several bites, she survived to share her experience. All right, next up, let's take a look at what's happening in the world of technology, starting with Indonesia's tax agency, which is investigating an alleged data breach that exposed the taxpayer identification numbers of millions of Indonesians. This includes the identification numbers of Indonesian President Joko Widodo, his ministers and his 2 sons. As per the local media, President Widodo has urged the relevant ministries to mitigate the problems imminently. Experts say the taxpayer data leak could attract targeted attacks from scam operations, adding that it could also expose people's earnings or transaction data. The alleged breach follows a ransomware attack in June that paralyzed several government services such as immigration and operations at major airports, prompting the government to conduct an audit.
According to U.S. Federal Trade Commission report, social media companies collect, share and process vast information of users while offering little transparency or control. This includes giving users information on how the data is being used for AI training. The report analyzed how major tech companies including Meta, ByteDance, Amazon, Alphabet and others manage user data. The report mentions how social media companies gather data through tracking technologies used in online ads, including buying information from data brokers. In addition to collecting data, most of the companies the FTC reviewed collected users' age and gender or guessed it based on other information. Some also gathered information on users' income, education and family status.
A robotic dog developed in the US is providing a promising alternative to chemical weed killers. Developed by researchers at Texas A&M University, the Spot robot uses heat from a torch powered by propane to blast the plant instead of killing the weed. The 4-legged robot weakens the weed at the root, preventing a quicker regrowth. So, nothing which happens when weeds are physically cut out. Now, according to its developer, the robot could also prove to be a helpful asset with the declining farmer numbers.
Well, China and Russia are facing a relative slowdown in their trade partnership after record-breaking trade numbers in 2023. The trade volume between the 2 countries witnessed a 1.9% increase in the first 8 months of 2024.
Well, the deceleration in trade growth is largely attributed to settlement challenges arising from US sanctions imposed on Russia. The impact of US sanctions on China-Russia trade is evident in the declining energy sector figures. Imports of crude oil from Russia saw a significant drop of 7.47% in July 2024, continuing a three-month trend of decreased import volumes. This follows a year of double-digit growth in China's crude oil imports from Russia. Additionally, exports of transport equipment from China to Russia fell by 11.32% in July, reflecting broader economic tensions and disruptions in trade dynamics.
Despite the slowdown, China remains Russia's largest trading partner, accounting for a third of Russia's foreign trade last year. The total trade value between the two nations reached a historic $240 billion in 2023. However, with the ongoing US sanctions targeting financial institutions and trade settlements, trade growth is expected to normalize at around $200 billion for 2024. Experts now suggest that any further relaxation in US sanctions or any kind of geopolitical shifts could alter this trajectory, potentially leading to a resurgence in trade volume. Well, now we turn our attention to a phenomenon called dynamic pricing. Anyone who has searched for a flight or perhaps an Uber ride is probably used to seeing the ad price change before they actually book it.
Well, businesses call it dynamic pricing. The real question, though, is whether this trend is fair. Take a look at this next report to know more.
Everything from flight tickets to concert passes are surging. Thanks dynamic prices for that. Fans of the rock band Oasis discovered this recently. In the span of a few hours, the price of tickets for the British rock band's return tour more than doubled. Dynamic pricing has grown popular among businesses, and here's how it works. The trend is really just technology, putting the age-old laws of supply and demand into practice in real time. Companies no longer need to re-evaluate pricing on an annual or quarterly basis. They can now do so instantaneously to ensure they get the maximum price clients are ready to pay at any given moment. The dynamic pricing trend also goes by several other names: yield management, surge pricing, etc. Early versions of dynamic pricing emerged in the 1990s when airlines started automatically altering rates to fill their aircraft. There was a mad dash to create better dynamic pricing systems with the emergence of e-commerce, which led to their wider use. Vacation packages, hotel stays, rail and theme park tickets, and a plethora of other consumer items are being sold through it. Some mobile apps have made surge pricing more transparent. Ride-hailing platforms such as Uber shows temporary surcharges to customers when local factors like rain lead to a jump in demand. Dynamic pricing is under growing scrutiny. The reason is that AI pricing algorithms could enable collusive activity that unfairly increases prices. The Federal Trade Commission has urged authorities to be watchful in the United States to curb anti-competitive behavior in the pricing. Changing prices significantly without giving customer advance notice raises potential issues around transparency and consumer protection. More essential goods, especially those subject to monopolies such as water, generally can be sold using dynamic pricing as the prices are regulated. Can one avoid getting stung by dynamic pricing? Well, no, not really, and that's why it's a concern for us consumers. Business Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, next up, let's take a quick look at what's making news in sport.